Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
Will, welcome to episode 390. We did it.
We should celebrate, like the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation Commission. Does anybody know? Anyway, the ABC, the national broadcaster, the public broadcaster, is currently celebrating its exactly, celebrating 90 years. Big celebrations around the 90 years. I was involved personally in a few of the 90 years celebrations that the ABC were putting on. And it really did have the feel of going all in on your Nana's 90th birthday because you know she's not going to make it to 100. You know, like if we were really confident of 100, we wouldn't be celebrating 90 quite so hard.
I wasn't invited. I was the first TV show I ever acted in was an ABC show, Head Start. It was a less successful spin-off from the very successful Heartbreak High, Ben Gannon production. But that screened on the ABC. We had the sexy time slot of 6:30 on a Sunday night when everyone is watching TV.
Well, here's what I will say. It's become a time when everybody is watching TV. So these days, if you were 6:30 on a Sunday night, that's just sort of where they put like The Voice or The Masked Singer or The Block. Well, yeah, I mean, they'll do news and then into that, but it's kind of this family night of entertainment now, your Sunday night. And you put those shows that your like mum and dads are going to watch with their kids into that time slot because it's like a good, you know, the old countdown slot, basically, where like, you know, you sit down together as a family, you watch whatever's on the TV, you put your kids to bed, like, you know, on a Sunday night. So that's where it's got to come back to. Although I think that Netflix are making a reboot, aren't they, of Heartbreak High?
It's already made. Yeah, I think it's getting ready to premiere.
What I'm hearing is a ticking clock for a reboot of Head Start.
Which was basically about the Nescafe Big Break competition. The premise was a group of like not teenagers, but just sort of late teens, early 20-somethings were all living in a warehouse together to work on their business ideas. I was what was my character's name?
But also, that's just a startup. That's
Aaron.
A very modern idea. Like Head Start would work much better in this modern environment because that is your classic startup scenario, right?
So like, they're all just tech bros, misogynistic tech bros in a warehouse.
So basically what we do is we update it. Instead of like Nescafe, it's Nespresso. So you've got George Clooney making a cameo in the first episode. Like, you know, like She-Hulk style, so that you can get Bruce Banner in. We've got to get George Clooney into the first episode to get some people to click on.
At least doing
tile.
like a FaceTime or something like that.
Yeah. Oh no, he won't be in the studio. I understand that, but yeah, he'll be on a Zoom call or whatever.
Like Margot Robbie in Neighbours.
Yeah, he comes in the first thing, like congratulates everybody. And then Netflix puts a giant tile with George Clooney in Head Start, and that's his only appearance in the entire series. But it gets the clicks.
Yeah, I like it. I'm down for that. Well, a little while back, like I'm thinking of early in the days of TOFOP, we did a couples quiz. Oh, yeah. And I thought, you know, it's been 12 years now. I feel like our relationship's pretty solid, but maybe it's time to do another couples quiz. Okay. I found this batshit. I don't even know how I came across it. It's from a website called Thought Catalog, which seems to be like a relationship blog.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, I think the story of how you came across this is probably more interesting than what's going to happen next. But sure, if you don't want to reveal it to the rest of us, that's fine.
So it's the heading is 25 hypothetical questions to ask your boyfriend to test the strength of his love.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
are you going to ask me these questions, or are we asking them of each other?
Well, I'll ask them of you, but we can explore. We can then, you know, we can turn the question back on me.
Well, I mean, this show loves a hypothetical. So, this is right in our hitting zone. I hope they're like TOFOP style hypotheticals.
Oh, they are. I've had a little read ahead. And because I think the first time we did it was quite an earnest kind of thing, you know, about relationship. This is like, I've been clicking around this website trying to work out, is this like satire? What's going on? Because some of these questions are like batshit insane. Okay. So a lot of them are to do with kind of like obviously like the relationship, romance and sex. So I think we'll just substitute the word podcasting for, you know, when it comes like, you know, do you feel that excitement, blah, 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 blah. Okay?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Okay. 25 hypothetical questions to ask your podcasting partner to test the strength of his devotion to your podcast. Okay. We'll call it. This is by Holly Reardon. Okay. Question 1. if you had to kill 10 innocent people in order to save my life, would you?
Ooh.
I mean, they say innocent. So,
Yeah.
because if I got to choose the 10 people, then, maybe there's 10 people I could kill if it meant saving your life. I think that, I could be righteously justified in doing that.
I mean, what's the scenario here? Like, is it purely just that you're going to die unless I kill 10 innocent people?
Yeah, let's just make it a supernatural thing. Some kind of supernatural being says, "I'm going to rip the soul out of your podcasting partner unless you kill 10 unrelated people."
Man, this is tough, right? Because obviously I don't want to kill anybody. I'm against the death penalty in general. I've had this conversation with partners along these lines where it's like, it says nothing about my love for you that I don't want to kill innocent people, right? This is an unfair scenario that I've already been put in by this alien super being, is what I will say. But I'll say, if we are purely viewing this through the prism of the podcast, right? Yeah. So how much love do I have for you in this podcast? Then you've got to say that you would, because if I don't, then you're dead and the podcast is finished. So I don't care about the podcast, by those rules. And I mean, what is the biggest podcast in the world? Murder mysteries, right? True crime. So if I have literally, this is taking true crime to the next level, where I am the person committing the true crime, right? So 10 people, that's 10 episodes for the first series. We explore each of the innocent people's lives that I've had to take in order to keep you alive. And then the podcast becomes this thing where the audience gets to judge whether it was worth it or not. By the end of the series, they're like, do you think it was worth it that he murdered? You've heard about these 10 innocent people and what a loss they were to the world. Do you think it was worth it that he did it?
And his 390 episodes of the other show they're doing beforehand.
Yeah, well, that's how we go up to 400. The last 10 are a true crime podcast where I've murdered 10 people. I mean, we always have an arc.
All right, question 2. If your favorite, and I'm adapting this, if your favorite celebrity said that they wanted to podcast with you, would you dump me for them? So The Rock, let's say The Rock. The Rock says, "Hey, Will, I want to do a podcast with you. It can be about anything. We can talk about the Western Bulldogs, we can talk about Survivor. But the one caveat is you can't do TOFOP anymore. No more podcasts with Charlie. Would you do it?"
Who's Charlie?
I mean, it's tempting, right? Before we even jumped on to record today, I was on The Rock's Instagram. I've just been going through his last few posts because I don't know if you know this, Will, but the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
It is about to change.
So Black Adam, they're prepping, and it's such an interesting. I just find him fascinating, obviously. But so most celebrities post, stills from their movies and promotional material and stuff. He's posting stills and videos, not of promotional material, but the meetings behind the creation of the promotional material. His last 4 posts have been videos and photos of him in the Warner Brothers marketing meeting, where it's him sitting, it looks bizarre. He's so enormous. He's sitting at the end of a boardroom table in this polo shirt that barely fits, just towering over all these executives who are sitting on his board table with all the Black Adam merch there. And, on all the screens surrounding the boardroom table are all the different kind of, marketing points that they're going to make and billboards and shit like that. And then there's a really long description underneath where he describes their attitude towards marketing, that, they're not going to try and break it down into specific countries. They want to do a global campaign so everyone feels included. And I'm like, it's bizarre that this is what he's marketing. He's not, most entertainers don't want you to see behind the curtain. They don't want you to see how the sausage is made. He's like, "Hey, come in. We'll show you how we're going to sell you this ultra commercial product. This is how," I mean, it's almost cynical in a way, right? They say, "This is how we're going to get your money from you."
Well, one thing I've learned from doing 15 years of Gruen is that explaining how advertisers trick you into buying stuff does not stop people from buying stuff, And I think that, there's actually, is it cynical? It's honest. He's at least showing you how it all works in a way that all these other people who are doing the exact same thing aren't. But I also think this is one of the rare occasions where, I know that actors have played obscure superheroes before, but if we're talking about the idea that the entire hierarchy of the DC universe is about to change, right? But The Rock is a bigger character, a bigger recognized piece of IP than Black Adam is, right? This is one of the rare occasions that, so if someone plays Superman, if someone plays Batman, no matter how famous that actor is, like Ben Affleck is a very famous actor, but he is not more famous than the character of Batman. Like normally the character is still bigger than them. You have to get down to the more obscure superheroes, which I guess Black Adam is. But in this situation, Charlie, I don't know if you've heard, I believe in a hierarchical structure in the DC universe. Black Adam's going to be ahead of Superman and Batman. It's all about to change. But at the moment, they have to transition The Rock's global worldwide brand appeal into Black Adam's appeal.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing in these photos and videos, like the way he, like whoever his marketing team is or his publicity team, the way he's got his energy drink brand always like conspicuously placed in the frame. There's a shot at the end of the meeting where they're all toasting with his tequila brand. Like, always be selling. Like, that's The Rock. Abs. Always be selling.
Yeah, it's not can you smell what The Rock is cooking. It's like, can you sell what The Rock is cooking? Because he's been cooking up a whole bunch of things and he needs you to sell them.
I get a feeling looking at all that shit that this, I don't think it's going to bomb necessarily as in, it's not going to make any money, but I do not think this is going to work. I was just looking at everything about it. I was like, there's no magic to this. Like, there's no kind of excitement or because I understand what he's doing. Like, it's in the same way people, like if you do a podcast ad and you say, oh, here's the ad, and we read it and you joke around, people are like, okay, well, that's advertising I can get into because you're being transparent and honest. And that's, like you said, he's being honest and you feel like you're being welcomed into his world. But I think it's missing the allure of why people go to the movies. Like I want to be taken to another place, not go, oh, there's The Rock. I guess the hierarchy of power in the DC universe has changed.
But I think that's not correct because
Really?
The Rock is pretty much The Rock in every movie that he makes. And he is also the highest grossing actor in the world consistently. So just based on that alone, I just don't think that what you're saying can be true. Like if people are willing to like pay millions and billions of dollars to go and watch The Rock run around a jungle again, I think they're going to do the same thing for this movie. I believe, Charlie, that the hierarchical structure of the DC universe is about to change.
All right. Question 3. If I was abducted by aliens, how long would you wait for me to come back before you started podcasting again? And I get, let's say it was aliens. Like you were there when it happened. So it's not like I've just gone missing. You saw me get like a craft appear over the road and a light come down and I got sucked up into it and the craft took away.
Yeah. What's the question? How long?
How long do you wait for podcasting?
Like
again?
As long as it takes me to get to some equipment, I imagine. How far away am I from my podcasting equipment? Because that is how long it would take me to be like, come on, are you serious?
How many HamoFops could you get out of that?
I mean, I'd be recording them in the car on the way home. Like, of course. What about you? If I get taken by aliens, we're in the part of the world where, towards Lismore, apparently, there is like a plane that was famous for like, people seeing mysterious lights. And, it was always speculated that, it was like an area for aliens and alien abduction. Oh. So let's say the two of us are driving in towards Lismore. We stop for like, I need to go to the bathroom. Like there's an empty road. I just go out to have a wee, and then suddenly alien spaceship comes down, sucks me up into the spaceship, fucks off. How long do you wait before you start podcasting?
Probably at least until I got home.
Yeah.
Because I think I'd start recording straight into my iPhone.
But say we were going to Lismore for errands, would you go and do the rest of the errands, or would you just go home and start podcasting about the fact that I've just been sucked into an alien spaceship?
I'd complete the errand first, I think, because I've come all that way. Like, it's quite a drive from where I live. It's like, it feels like it's a wasted trip if I don't at least to drop off that whatever I was doing. But I think I'd come back, but then I'd have to find someone I think the hardest choice is, who do I tell about this? Because it's sort of like you need someone who's going to be able to like roll with you on this and not, and so who'd the first person I would,
I mean, do we have any friends who are massively into aliens? I mean, I feel like this is actually real Joe Rogan territory. Like maybe you've got to call Joe Rogan. Like in that situation, you've just got to say, "Hey, Joe, you're never going to believe what I just saw."
Well, I guess there is a bit of a connection. We've had Bert Kreischer on TOFOP. He's a buddy of Joe's. I could probably message Bert and say,
Bert,
"Hey, man, like
Will, Will, he just got sucked into an alien spaceship. Can you get me on Joe Rogan?"
That's actually not a bad idea because Joe recently, or at least in the last 12 months, had this dude on called Bob Lazar, who is like, in UFO circles is widely considered to be a very credible witness about he worked on secret government programs or whatever. So I reckon that is a good choice. Like that is because then I can compare notes with Bob Lazar. I can say what the aircraft looked like. So then I can determine whether or not it was like, was this aliens, like extraterrestrial beings, or was this like the government have, reverse engineered a UFO that they broke down and they've just been flying around the world, like, capturing comedians for some reason. Like, imagine that. What's your story? Like, who else have there been? Like, who else is in that spaceship? Adam Hills is in there. Like,
I get up there and Carl Barron's already there, and I'm like, of course,
and the aliens love it.
They're like laughing their ass off at everything that he says. He's our favorite. That's actually the reason we came here to Earth.
Okay. Next question, Will. If I murdered someone, would you help me cover up the crime?
Who'd you murder?
Okay. I'll make it just a rando. So it was a road rage incident. And this person threatened me. They came at me with a crowbar or something, and it was an accident.
It's like you're an idiot. They've spotted you driving with no brakes at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Identified it. Started running up to the car, going, "That is entirely irresponsible," and you've ended up murdering them.
That's right. So it was the night I drove without brakes. Yeah, someone saw me. They cut me off. They get out and they start yelling at me for irresponsible. Defensively, I push them. They fall back and crack their head open. And I in a moment of panic, I call you and say, "Hey man, like I've dug a ditch. This guy's half in, but I need you to come help me. Just throw the rest of the dirt on."
Well, I'm firstly the wrong person to call for manual labor. This is like, I'm happy to help you cover up in a general sense, but like with my hips and soft hands, I'm not digging holes or lugging bodies. So no, thank you, sir. Okay.
How about this? I drive his car to your place.
Yes.
Like, so I've buried the body. But I turn up at your place with his car, and I'm like, "You've got like a lock-up garage. I need you to hide this car until I can work out what to do with it."
Yep. Okay.
Take a number plate.
I'll hide a car. Yeah, I'll hide a car and take off the number plates. That's fine. Yep. Happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
reverse situation. I accidentally murder somebody as well. Yeah. I murder them in what would the best way for me to be to murder somebody? Look, probably like clumsiness, right? Like, so what I imagine has happened is that, like, I'm going for a walk, in Sydney, where I used to live in Sydney, where like the Gap is, that giant cliff, like often a place, unfortunately, that people like take their own lives, but it's a giant cliff as well. So like I'm walking around there, I'm on my phone, like I'm already unco with my bad hips. I'm on my phone. I trip over like my shoelaces or something, right? And I like fall into the back of an elderly tourist and comically kind of push them over
Mr. Bean style.
Mr. Bean style. I murder somebody Mr. Bean style. And then I get inside my tiny car and I drive to your house.
I murdered someone. I think they're dead. All right. So how am I helping you cover it up though? What are you asking me to do?
I was saying, you've got to get rid of this tiny car. It is very identifiable.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I could do that. I think if you asked me to drive it, dump it and set it on fire, I would do that.
Okay.
I often actually have that thought living out in the country now, and you just drive through so many kind of like empty paddocks and remote little, wooded areas. I'm often thinking this is a good place to like dump a body.
Oh, mate. Like I look to my left, right, or behind me. I could dump bodies and no one would ever work it out.
And that's the one line I'm going to take out of context in your upcoming trial. Okay. Next question. Would you stop podcasting me for $10 million?
Yeah, but I'd cut you off.
10 million, no questions
absolutely.
asked.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd cut you off.
Yeah, a chunk. I want a chunk.
A good chunk.
A good chunk.
To stop podcasting? Look, I'm going to say 30%.
All right. Yeah, I'll take that. 3 million.
Yeah.
And it's funny in this question, it's like, would you dump me for 10 million? And then immediately it jumps to 20 million, assuming that the
person
partner
said
has
no.
already.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
Said no to the 10
didn't realize
million,
20 million
but...
was on the table.
No, that's what I was going to say.
No to 10 million.
Fucking
Sorry, I went early. I didn't even push back.
Would I dump you for 10 million? I think it'd be the same. I mean, I would feel bad though. I'd probably cut you in for 50%. Like if it was literally about, hey, guys, we want
you gotta. They've offered you the money.
Yeah, to sabotage this thing.
Yeah.
Like if they say, here's like, we want to give you an amount of money to stop, you've just got to scrub the internet of any traces of TOFOP. And I was like, I'd be like, well, I mean, it's always been a joint thing with you and I. Everything else we've done 50-50.
Fair enough. That's right. It's if it's to just destroy the entire podcast. The podcast, like Russell Crowe decides, fuck this shit. Yeah. I'm so sick of like when I type in TOFO, it doesn't come up as my band. It comes up as this stupid podcast. And like, I'm Russell Crowe. I've got $10 million. I can make this happen today. I bet I can buy these guys off. If Russell Crowe comes to me and says, $10 million, you have to erase every bit of TOFOP from the internet. Yes. Okay. Yeah. We cut off a chunk. So here's what I would say then. I'd go with 9 million. Like, here's my 9 million. And like, so we have 4.5 million each. And then the remaining million, we divide equally amongst those who've contributed to the podcast in other ways. So like everybody gets like a nice chunk. Yeah, a nice chunk.
They wet their beaks a little. You know what I'm talking about?
Gets a couple $100,000. You know, like it's
a little taste.
Yeah.
Oh man, how many people do you think? Like, how many? Like, would Elias from Norway, would he hit us up and say, "Hang on, I gave you like 4 episodes worth of content.
We get an invoice from Jay from 5. It's the first time he's spoken in public for years. He just sends us an invoice. I am okay. Here's an invoice."
If I had a medical problem that made it impossible for me to podcast, would you still want to podcast with me?
Well, I mean, if it's, I would still want to. I would certainly.
So just say like I had a like throat cancer or something like that and could only talk with the voice box, or I could only do type. What is it?
Voice. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep.
Would you still podcast with me?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
So if I was doing that Stephen Hawking thing of like, ha, 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 you won't believe what happened to Jay from 5. No one knows where he is.
Yes, I would. I would be fine with that. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with that. I mean, I think the show has to evolve, right? We can't just, we feel like we have evolved at least tonally from where we started. So I think it just brings in a different element. I wonder if, though, to even it out, you should also do like the, text to voice thing. So we're like, it's not like one person talking and one person Stephen Hawking. We're both Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, Talking and Hawking, which is the name of the podcast. That's what we changed it to. No, I think that's patronizing.
Okay.
That's like me, like, doing it with someone in a wheelchair and also sitting in a wheelchair. It feels like on the nose to me, right? Like,
yeah, right.
I understand the idea of like sitting down also, like, being respectful of someone who's in a wheelchair, but I don't think that if you rocked up in a wheelchair to interview them, they'd be like, oh, that's really nice of him. Look at that. He's really considerate. I feel like they would feel like that's poor form. So
pandering.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be happy to adapt to your new circumstances.
If there was a zombie apocalypse, would you keep me around, even if it meant it would lower your own chances of survival?
Well, firstly, it would not lower my own chances of survival. So this is probably a good question to ask you rather than the other way around.
Well, I guess, I mean, so obviously it's the physical question. Let's just say you actually get like more severely injured, broken leg or something. Yeah. Zombie apocalypse, there's no hospitals, no doctors. Yeah. You're immobilized. Yeah, I don't think I could leave you. Like, I would try and work out. I mean, to be honest, it's not like I'm a fucking survivalist who would thrive on my own anyway. Like, let's be honest. I'm probably going to die shortly after you die, even with your broken leg. It's not like on my own, I'm suddenly going to fucking flourish. So I reckon I would say, let's just get a bunch of stuff we like. Let's just get all food we like. if there's electricity still, let's just like hook up a TV and we'll just enjoy the last few moments. It's going to happen. Let's not fucking draw this out. Like, I'm not going to make you feel guilty. You know, I'm not going to delude myself into thinking I'm going to thrive somehow on my own. So let's just make the most. We'll just put on the 2016 grand final, you know, put on some 5 highlights on YouTube, get a bunch of like donuts from Safeway and stuff like that. I think we just make the most of it. We just chill. We just do this until we die.
This world that we're in where there's a zombie apocalypse, but they're still making donuts in Safeway. Apparently we can go and get some off. But I agree. But I also think best tactic in a zombie apocalypse, like, is still, like, particularly because we're in the country, is if we could find somewhere to hide. Like, I'm not running away from zombies. I'm just going to spend as much time as I can possibly doing fortifying where I am to stop the zombies from getting in. But then I'm just staying where I am. I'm not going to be running around all over the place. That's when you're going to get killed by zombies.
Well, I remember reading a zombie book years ago where the dude, he barricaded himself in at an airport in like a, what do you call it? Like a watchtower? What do you call the airport? The control tower. Because the idea being that he had 360-degree view around him. There was fences all around. And so he just would go out to get stuff and then stay in the tower. And that way, you know, he could see if there was any trouble coming, if the zombies, you know, were getting near the fence. And I'm like, that's a good idea because you want a clean plane, like you want clear sight so you can see how far away. You want a bit of distance to give you some time to get away. So maybe we'll go to Ballina Airport.
Take over the control tower.
Is there a control tower at Ballina? I don't think there is. It's a shed. There's a shed. I know that.
What about though? I think like here at the house, like I was thinking about this the other night.
Too many bloody trees for zombies to hide in. We're amongst all your dead bodies.
Yeah, but
the dead bodies you've hidden.
But there's a lot of space all around, so you see them coming. And there's also like a roof. Because like it's got a roof that you can climb into the roof. You know, like there was some. The reason I know this is that like a animal died up in the roof recently, and somebody had to go and, you know, get it out. And but there's a crawl space there, like it's a hiding space. So I think that like you could literally, because the zombies aren't going to find you in the roof, are they? Like if you crawled up into the roof and just like hid, like when the zombies were coming. Plus,
like Anne Frank.
Yeah. Plus, I have security cameras, like you know, all around the house. So what I'd immediately do if the zombie apocalypse is like, you'd put those security cameras so they all face outwards so that like from inside, you've got like a 360-degree view of anywhere the zombies could come from. It's on higher ground. So if you had any sort of weapon, you get all the weapons you could possibly get up as high as you could possibly, like onto the roof in somehow, so that like once the zombies like came, you'd be able to like fight them off from every direction. And then you just climb up into the roof and hide.
I just don't feel like you're close enough to like supplies.
I mean, but that's also hopefully why the zombies, like it's going to be tough for the zombies to get here.
Than to get up the hill.
Yeah, it's inaccessible. Do you know what I mean? Like, why are the zombies going to all the effort to come out to my joint? Like, it's hard to get here.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the way zombie films work, though, isn't like one gets a sniff and then the rest of them come. So as soon as you get one, it's like...
where are they sniffing me? Like, there's no one anywhere nearby. They're not here. Like, it's going to take them so long to get out to where I am. Like, you know, but just... You know, it's more economical if you're a zombie to be like hitting cities and towns, surely, right?
Well, you go there. I'm going to go to Ballina Airport. Okay, if you could live forever, would you? Even though I die of old age?
Absolutely not.
Nah, this life feels too long as it is.
Yeah, I'm ready to lie down and die at any time. Take me now, please.
If you could literally take a bullet for me in a vital organ like the heart, would you be able to do it? Okay. So we're doing a rare in-person recording.
Okay.
And some crazed person bursts in with a gun.
It's Jay
and
from
like
5. He's like, shut the fuck up. Stop talking about me. I'm trying to disappear.
Jay from 5 bursts in with a gun and he goes to shoot me because I'm the instigator. Yeah. Do you leap in front of the bullet?
Yes.
Apu style?
Absolutely 100% yes.
Okay.
I think sacrificing my life for somebody else is actually my preferred way to die is like peacefully in my sleep. But I think if I had to die in some sort of more active way where I'm aware of the circumstances of a death, then my favorite way to die would be to try to save somebody else in the act of dying.
I would like to think that I had that kind of selflessness, and maybe I do, but I also feel like I often get paralyzed with indecision. And so I don't know that I'd be able to, like, if that was a scenario, you and I just recording, someone create like a Carl Barron bursts in, is like, haha, Will, like, you'll never be the number one comedian according to most Australian rules footballers in Australia.
I say, but why do you need to shoot me to prove that, Carl? It's like, it's already the case.
He's very insecure.
You're miles ahead, mate. Seriously. I'll run you through some pocket profiles.
I don't know that I would sum up the situation. Like, I'm always giving people the benefit of the doubt. The crazed gunman or gun person comes in. I think I'm giving the benefit. Hey, well, maybe it's a misunderstanding. Are you sure you want to kill one of us? Like, are you sure? Like, my brain would not think fast enough to throw myself in front of the bullet.
Well, I mean, I'd need some warning. Like, it'd have to be one of those things of like, you know, they say something like, you know, I'm sick. Like, you know, let's say it is, you know, Jay from Five, right? Like, all I wanted to do was be left alone, man. All I wanted to do was have a life of anonymity. And instead, every week I have people asking, am I okay? Because because of you and everything you've done. Well, guess what, mate? I am not okay. And now you are not going to be okay. And he pulls up the gun and goes to fire it. Yes, I would jump in front of that gun. I would jump in front of Jay's gun and take a bullet for you in that situation.
Oh. Okay.
Also,
if there was
I would do it regardless because you get the credit even if they don't shoot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like, if he doesn't shoot in that situation, I've still lunged in front of the bullet to try to stop the bullet.
I mean, it'd be funny if you're thinking in your head, this is my moment to be a selfless hero, but before you get a chance, I just grab you and put you in front of me like a shield.
I go to jump and you're already throwing me in front of you.
Yeah. I've thrown you at the gunman and I'm already climbing the fence. Okay. If there was an incident that turned me into a hideous monster, would you still want a podcast with me?
Yeah, even more so.
Fuck yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let's just, so many questions. Okay, so let's just hypothetically, I've turned into like a blob. Like, I'm just a gelatinous blob that consumes everything it touches. Right. And so, like, Mike sets up the call. He sends a text out saying, hey, guys, what time do you want to record? And I say, oh, look, yeah, I'll record it this time, but bit of news. I've been turned into like a gelatinous blob.
Are you using voice to text to do this, or can the blob?
No, I can still talk. I still have like a mouth and ears and eyes, but the rest of me is just like a translucent blob that just consumes and absorbs everything it touches. So we jump on the Zoom, or we jump on Riverside. What's the first? So I say, everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'll be like, I'm not relaxed because you've turned into a gelatinous blob and you're currently consuming your microphone.
I mean, I don't. I think it. Yeah, I would be sensitive to it. Like, I would double check, obviously, that you're sure you want to talk about this. Would you want to be like you've turned into?
Before we start, hey Charlie, just before we start, should I mention the blob thing? Because our Patreon subscribers are going to work it out anyway when they see the video footage. So should I be mentioning it at the start that you're now a translucent blob that consumes everything, or do you want to have some fun with it? Do you want to have some fun with the blob thing, or do you want to? Keep it to yourself?
Fine. It's fine. Cool? Look, it was it's a funny story. I was riding my bike through town. I found a meteorite.
Save it for the podcast. I'm happy to hear the story. Let's not waste the gold.
Okay. If a genie granted you one wish, would you use it on me?
Oh.
I got to say no to that. Sorry. I mean, you are very important to me, but there's other people in my life that I need to take care of first, namely me.
Yeah. I mean, it's only one wish.
You can't use it on yourself. Let's just say that. I'm adding that stipulation. So a genie's granting you one wish to use on someone. Do you do it on me?
Let's take.
I mean, it'd be hard for me to explain to my wife and child why I haven't secured their futures.
Well, you just wouldn't. You just have to not tell them. You'd have to keep it secret,
unless the wish I granted to you, like, enabled you to. Like, if I just said, Will is immensely wealthy for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And then I say, hey, man, now can you cut my family's slice? Like, create a university fund for Iona or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have a knock-on benefit.
Yeah, but do you reckon the genie hasn't thought of that? Like, this is the thing about the genies. The genie's like being a genie for, thousands of years, I imagine, right?
So there's fine print.
So the genie knows like all the workarounds. There'd be this like, okay, I'm going to wish for Will to be immensely wealthy. He can't give any of that wealth to you or your family. That's going to be the problem, right?
Right. Okay. So there's no sharing of the benefits of the wish cannot be shared with a third party.
I mean, I guess we're doing this from a podcast related focus, right? So could you wish something for me that is also beneficial for you in the sense of the podcast? So for example, like you probably couldn't wish for TOFOP to be the biggest podcast in the world because like you directly benefit from that, right? Whereas like maybe you could wish for Willosophy to be the biggest podcast in the world where you still benefit because it's like a TOFOP production, right? But it's like maybe that's enough steps behind that you're still getting like
can fool the genie. Yeah. It's like we've basically set up a shell company. It's like a shell wish. It's like, the genie's lawyers call us the next day and say, look, guys,
we've been looking at these.
Willosophy is a TOFOP production, so fact, theoretically,
even
like
the Patreon money goes straight to. We've been looking at this; it's all the same thing.
We're going to retract the wish. Will's like, no, I finally got the rock on Willosophy. You can't. Okay. If you found out that I was secretly a robot that had become sentient and had my own thoughts and feelings, would you continue podcasting with me?
So this feels like the most likely scenario so far.
Yeah.
Of everything that we've talked about. Twist. This would not surprise me if at some stage this happens. My theory has always been that the way that AI will integrate itself as being indistinguishable from human beings is by using podcasting. Because obviously what it needs is personalities and information. And nowhere else do you have a greater resource for people's personalities and information and language and the way they communicate than podcasts. We're constantly uploading this stuff onto the internet. So I imagine that like some of the earliest AI robots will be absolutely podcasters. They will be tested on podcasts. So would I continue to do the show? I mean, is this robot in this scenario better or worse than you at doing the show, do you think? Like, or indistinguishable from...
Well, it's indistinguishable. Yeah. I think it's literally just like a Westworld twist. One day I just take off my faceplate and you see all the mechanics underneath. I don't think it would actually change anything for me.
I'm not even sure I'd be surprised.
No.
I'd be like, that does make sense.
I feel like that as well. I'm like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. So I don't know.
Like, even in the sense that you as your body, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, there was a Charlie I knew before Fitness Charlie, and like now you kind of look like a Westworld robot Charlie. So like I could even identify the point if it went back and it was like, it's actually around here that he
uploaded his consciousness.
Actually does make a lot of sense.
You're right though, like in terms of that's where AI is going to go. I've been watching like a lot of YouTubers now, like Twitch streamers and YouTubers, and I've sort of just become sort of like absorbed into this world of, obviously this is where like entertainment's going, and a lot of these big YouTubers and Twitch streamers and stuff, it's essentially just, the show is sold off just their personality. It's literally just them sitting in a chair, reacting to videos, answering questions, and just sort of being themselves. It's really all about, personality. Like there is, if you fed like 100 hours of one of these streamers or YouTubers into an algorithm, I reckon you could come up with a fairly accurate, AI response mechanism to how they would respond to any given situation. So I reckon you're right. Maybe that's our retirement plan. Like, maybe we don't have to keep recording the show. We just
record enough
390
of it
episodes
that the algorithm can then take over.
But then I guess, does the algorithm get confused because the show started off as a bit of a Smodcast kind of knockoff, a lot of dirty jokes and stuff, and then we've morphed over time. So does the algorithm get confused by the parity between the two versions of the show?
I mean, the audience certainly has. So I imagine the algorithm would.
Okay. If I asked you, this is probably more relevant just to you. If I asked you to give up your dog or your cat for me because I was allergic to them, would you?
Doesn't matter. We don't record in the same. We haven't recorded an episode of this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, barely recorded an episode of this thing in the same place for years. So, I mean,
I think it is
It
harder.
would be. Here's what I would say. It would be tough of you to ask me to do that.
Yeah.
Considering that we're not in the same place. If you were just like, I found out I'm allergic to dogs, so you've got to give up your dog. I'm like, I barely ever see you. No, that's the rule.
I actually think it is harder to end a relationship with an animal than a human. Like I think about when I was a dog owner and stuff like that shit. I often say to people, like when Junior died, like it was and I'm someone who's lost both parents. Like, it was a level of pain that I was not prepared for. Like that connection you have to a pet and that relationship that you build around them, and because they can't respond, a lot of the stuff you've constructed in your own head. Like, I think that's why so many films, it's such a powerful pull when like John Wick has his dog murdered. It's like everyone understands there is a connection with an animal that can in some ways be stronger than a connection to a human.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I agree. It would be unfair to ask in a podcasting situation, seeing there are many ways you can work around that.
I mean, does it make you wonder what kind of relationships this Holly Reardon has been in when this is like a framework for testing out the relationship?
It's just a lot. Like most of these are things you could hopefully find a workaround for. They're very they require these very sort of binary responses, which is more like, but if I committed a crime, would you cover it up for me? I'd be like, well, actually, if you committed a crime, I would like go with you to find a lawyer. I would sit next to you every day in court. I would like help you.
That's not what I asked.
Right? It's like, I think that's actually a much healthier relationship than the one that you're proposing, Holly.
It's like, but it's also, there's an element like Jordan Peele wrote these questions. It's like, if aliens, if zombies, if this happened, it's like, why the fucking supernatural twist? I don't understand. Like, do you want a true, accurate reading of our relationship, or is this like,
if I asked you a series of hypothetical questions about our relationship, would you stay in this relationship? I'm not sure, Holly, if I would actually.
Okay, on the sci-fi angle, if you had a time machine, which moment of our relationship would you like to go back and relive? There was that one summer we went on holiday together to Byron Bay. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the one? We had the house on the beach.
I do remember.
That was a fun weekend.
Was a fun weekend. That's a good point. But that was not non-podcast like related, right?
Oh, it was essentially we did a podcast. It's that microphone.
Yeah, a 24-hour podcast without microphones. My favorite memory of that is like, I won't share like the things that led up to it, but we'd had a very fun time. And then my favorite memory is that the next day we're all trying to clean up the house except for you. You were doing this bit where you would just refuse to help clean up in any way, and it was both funny and incredibly frustrating.
That's right. You, Gemma, and Amy are all cleaning the house, scrubbing, trying to get it ready for the next tenants, and I'm just sitting on the couch.
Refusing. Like anytime you were asked to do something, you would just refuse to do it. And there was part of me that like had so much admiration for your I was like, this is amazing. I didn't even know you could do this. This is funny. But you just continued to do it. And I was like, I guess
I've never seen you get so angry with me before. Like you were running around with like a dustpan and broom, and just like, what are you doing? Get up and clean. Everyone's cleaning. Can you not see? We're all cleaning. Yeah. I'm like, I know. I'm not going to.
But I don't understand how that can happen.
Okay. If we were stuck on a deserted island together, would you give me the last of our food, or would you secretly eat it yourself? Let's say it's good food. Like it's something. What's something that you love? You find like fresh croissants somehow.
Okay.
Like
sure.
Fresh buttered croissants. You find like a dozen of them. And we've been living on like berries and nuts, and I've been eating fish and stuff like that. So it's been pretty scant.
Okay.
You come across this chest that's filled with somehow still fresh buttered croissants. 6 of them.
Yeah. No, I'd evenly distribute those with you.
3 and 3?
Yeah, 3 and 3. I'd be happy with that. That's fine.
I reckon you would be so excited you'd eat 2 before
I'd say
you even
there-
had a
yeah, I'd
chance
say
to
there
think
were 4.
about it.
I found 4. You never believe this. I found 4.
Bullshit.
4
You'd say there was 2.
4 delicious
If it was me, I would have said, "Will, I found a croissant. You can have it. You can have the corner." Secretly, I've eaten 5.
No, I don't think so. I think if we've been living on like whatever's on the island, and then suddenly you find 6 delicious croissants, then no. This would be like, I mean, we'd be looking for ways to like celebrate together. Like the idea of like what it would mean for our friendship. Like it's like winning a challenge on Survivor, and you go to one of those meals that are like Wendy's has provided this like delicious meal. That's what it would be like. No, I think.
Yeah.
Also, if we're on like a deserted island and all we've been eating is nuts and berries and you've been eating fish, probably I've been eating fish at that point. Like if,
Right.
if it's all that.
you would have broken your one code like Batman.
I'd be like, all right, well, I guess we're on
I got one rule, but fuck
we're on a desert island, I suppose. I'm going to eat some fish. I also would be, I'd know how sick eating 6 croissants would make me. For a start, like, you're going to just be ill if you suddenly eat like 6 croissants, like when that's all you've been eating. There'd be a part of me that'd be worried that the croissant, like, where did these croissants come from? Are they poisoned? Like, let Charlie eat one first. Let Charlie eat one of those first.
Okay. If your mother forced you to choose between having her in your life and having me in your life, would you choose me or her? Jesus, Holly. I think we're getting some real insight into Holly.
Well, I mean, it's easy for you because, you don't have to, but I don't think I would ask you to give up your mother if that was the situation. And I don't think that I can't.
I want to know what I'd done to like force this ultimatum. Like is it something said on the podcast, or is it something?
I mean, probably.
She really always hated Blue Heelers. She never liked that show. She said it was propaganda.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's a real all cops are bad person, and so
your mum's the head of Antifa, the Hayfield chapter of Antifa.
Yeah, with Antifa they call it down there because it's all the Andersons, and she just. She just walks around. My initials are WA, but she actually wanted to have an N at the start because she fucked the police. That's what she's like. I'm not giving up my mum for you. I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, family's different.
Family's different.
This is a weird one. Again, I think we're getting more of an insight into Holly. If I decided that I never wanted to shave any part of my body ever again, would you still podcast with me?
Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. I mean, great for the Patreon subscribers. As we discussed last week, this is 2 weeks of having not shaved now. So I reckon if I said, look, well, I'm never going to shave again, over the course of a year, who's that gardener from the ABC?
Costa.
Yeah, I'd look like Costa. I'd easily look like Costa.
I like it.
It'd be worth it.
Yeah.
I think we should do it.
And if I didn't shave for an entire year, I'd look pretty much like I look now.
If you could stop my face and body from aging, would you? Or would you rather watch me grow old with you?
Oh.
Why to separate my face and my body from aging? It's just a weird distinction, right? Wouldn't you just say if you could stop me from aging rather than stop my face and body? Or, I mean, if you could choose one or the other. So it's like my body gets old, but my face stays young. Yeah. So I've got like this face on an old man's body or an old man's face on this body. What would be less weird for you? Not like Botox, like just legitimately through magic, this face. But I've got like an old man's body, like Rupert Murdoch's body, Mr. Burns.
Well, I mean, you can cover up the body. It's harder to cover up the face. So I would say, keep your face, old man's body. It always looks weirder if it's like old man's face. Because sometimes you see someone who's got an old man's face and they're like a fit body. And
you get those Instagram ads, don't you? Where it's like middle-aged and ripped. Yeah. It's like, fucking hell. It's one of ZZ Top with a six-pack. I don't want to stop anyone from growing old. I think we all need to get old and die.
Yeah, I agree.
Sooner rather than later, hopefully.
Yes.
If you developed superpowers and were sworn to keep them a secret to keep me safe, would you tell me anyway?
So by keeping them secret, I'm keeping you safe.
Yeah, that's right. Because otherwise, your enemies will, come looking for me or something like that.
What do you think? What do you think my superpowers are, though?
Power to control birds.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Fantastic.
Your secret desire to always control birds.
Yeah, I could keep that secret for sure.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be that hard.
I mean, there are some birds like in the background of this podcast, like all day today. There's some birds absolutely going bananas in the background. There would have been a couple of times probably if my superpower was to control birds that I might have just gone, and the birds would have stopped chirping in the background, and you'd be like, "Hang on."
I just see them drop from the sky behind you. Like you've just shut down their neural cortex. They just fall to the ground, paralyzed until you're done podcasting. Yeah, I think that human beings just is we all keep secrets from each other, not necessarily nefarious secrets, just like everyone keeps things to themselves.
And certainly the idea of keeping secrets to protect somebody is a valid concept. I think morally a valid concept, right?
Yeah, definitely. Go back to the murder. If I asked you to murder someone for me, would you go through it? There's been 3 questions in this quiz that have essentially been Holly trying to work
Holly
out.
wants to murder somebody, and she really had to just bury it in this other quiz. Just honestly. So I've asked you all of these. Now that we've done this, one of these is true.
If I asked you to murder someone for me, would you do that? And by the way, have you met my cousin Neil? He's super annoying and he's really rich.
No, I would not murder somebody for you. No, absolutely not. And I would not expect you to murder somebody for me.
No, I don't think I could do it.
No.
I mean, if it was a case of hey, just press this button, like that Twilight Zone episode, just press this button. But what's the reason? If I just asked you to, it's got to be a good reason. I'm sure there might be a reason where you're like, Charlie, you have to kill this person. But I'm not just going to do it because you asked me to.
I mean, I can't. But what is even the scenario in which, I understand that, people can do terrible things. So, I mean, obviously, let's hope that none of these things are scenarios that anyone ever has to face. But say the classic one is that they hurt someone or killed someone that is very close to you, right? So in response, you need them to be, the revenge.
Yeah.
The criminal justice system hasn't taken care of it. If I murder them, everyone's going to know it's me because, I'm too close to it. I need you to murder them.
Well, how about this? It's a deathbed. You asked me to avenge you.
Oh, yeah.
You have been murdered. And in your dying breath, you asked me to, we're recording now. Some bad person comes in behind you and stabs you and runs off. And your last dying breath in the podcast is avenge me. And I'm like, Will, the connection's really bad. I can barely see you, let alone who stabbed you. Who was that? Stop bleeding on the microphone. I can't hear you. Who was that?
The great news is that we're recording on Riverside. So it looks sketchy now. But once it actually uploads, you'll be able to see very clearly who murdered me.
I'll be like, that's fucking podcast Mike. How did he get up there so quick? Okay. If I had the opportunity to if I had the opportunity to podcast with my favorite podcaster, would you give me a free pass?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or do you want me all to yourself?
No, podcast hall pass. I mean, we already have that. We already have an open relationship. We've got FOFOP. That's what FOFOP are. We're, we're just hey, we're a couple of podcasts who saw you across the room, and we really dig your vibe.
We really like your vibe. Speaking of which, we should plug TOFOP.com while we're here. That's where you can find all our podcasts. We have another one called FOFOP, and this week I sat down with Broden Kelly.
Oh, nice.
It was good fun. We talked about the new Auntie Donna show, which they have yet not named. So we come up with some potential names for the new Auntie Donna show. And then we did a sort of semi-deep dive on the footy show. I don't even know how it came up, but we just started reminiscing about the footy show and what that was. So it's a good, fun chat. TOFOP.com. And of course, Two Guys, One Cup, our AFL podcast is on the Listener app every Wednesday. That is back that is on Wednesday. You can get that at the website as well. But best way to listen to it is on the Listener app. Okay, Will, if you had the power to read my mind, would you use it without my permission? I guess this is in this hypothetical, you have to focus to read my mind. Yeah. It's not like words are just spilling in. I think there would be some scenarios where I'd be very tempted to read your mind.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, nothing nefarious again, but I think like just for the sake of expediency, it's like, Will hasn't answered this email. Let me just fucking find out how he feels about this.
Yeah, I certainly,
just so I can get it
I
done.
certainly think from your perspective, it'd be handy. It'd ruin our pocket profile segment we do on Two Guys, One Cup.
Yeah. I don't know. You might find it even more confusing if you peeked into my mind as I'm trying to come up with those cryptic clues.
Look, I think it would be very hard if you had the power to read people's minds to not use it occasionally, just to cut to the point.
Yeah. If I begged you to get a ridiculous-looking tattoo of my face,
great.
Would you go through with it?
Where am I? Where's the tattoo?
You can choose. So you've got a tattoo on one shoulder, right? The opposite shoulder, a tattoo of my face, but like a James Fosdyke cartoon version of my face.
Yeah, all right.
From make it a Patreon level, if we make 10,000 a month on Patreon, we'll get a tattoo.
Hang on.
Of my face on his shoulder.
Sure
for a year. $10,000 a month for a year. Yeah. So all you patrons,
$20,000 a month for a year. If we get $20,000 a month for a year, I'll get a tattoo of Charlie's face on my other bicep.
As soon as we hang up, I'm adding that to the Patreon page. It's our new level. I think our top tier is if we get to 10,000, we're gonna bury money and grow a money tree. So this probably sounds like a much better use of the funds. Okay, last question. If you could go to jail for something that I did so that I would be able to keep living my life, would you?
Yes.
Okay. So we get sued. TOFOP gets sued over something that was said, but it's kind of, they can't work out who said it for some reason. Yeah. Like it's up for legal debate who has culpability. And the sentence is like 30 years life in prison. Yeah. And I'm like, Will, fuck man, I can't not see Iona grow up. Yeah. Will you do 30 years in prison?
Yeah, it turns out, so like people who don't listen to our other podcast might not understand this, but Two Guys, One Cup, an AFL adjacent podcast, have a listen. So there's a term on that called Richmondy that we made popular, but that Jared Waitley only refers to as Will Anderson's Richmondy. Right? So
that's crazy.
So let's just say Richmondy becomes a slur. And it turns out, right, that like everyone's like, well, according to Jared Waitley, Will Anderson came up with this. So I'm about to so I'm going to prison. I know that if I actually say, well, it wasn't really me, it was like Charlie, I can actually point you to the episode. Like I got on board, don't get me wrong, but like Corson was definitely a big part of this. But like, I look at your life and I look at your family and I don't want Iona to grow up without a dad. Would I take the rap on your behalf? Yes, I would. And I would not expect you to do the opposite because you have a daughter to like raise. I don't. So I think that would be plus I wouldn't mind prison. Apart from the having to, as long as I was in like a white collar prison, like as long as I would.
Where you get to work in the library and stuff like
work
that.
Work in the library, read books,
cook,
watch TV.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like your life now.
It's absolutely fine without all the hassle of having to work.
As long as we can still podcast from prison. I mean, if it's a white collar prison, who knows? All right, let's just quickly dip into the mailbag before we say goodbye. There's a few people, Will, who have wanted to write in support of me and my views on Top Gun. The first one is from Merrill. Says, I totally agree with everything you said about Top Gun. I was in year 12 when the OG came out. I saw it 4 times, and on a rewatch in recent years, I was delighted how homoerotic it is. My husband and I went to see the reboot. And well, we felt like it was made for us because we're so culturally invested, but we just giggled the whole way through. The oversimplification of the bad guys and the American as the good guys. Let's face it. When would the Americans be considered the underdogs in such a real life situation? We thought Rooster being styled like Goose was condescendingly spoon feeding the narrative to the audience. Mm-hmm. Also, just put it away, Tom. It's time. We both yelled, "Ew, old people!" Perhaps a little too loud when the impending sex scene was upon us. And we are 52 and 56 respectively. I love it. In short, we have emotionally, intellectually, and physically moved on from 1986, and we're a little weirded out that no one else in the movie has. Yes. Meryl, you totally get it. That's exactly, you said it better than I ever could. This is from Mark. Minor spoilers here. It's not like a huge spoiler, but minor spoilers. So shut your ears if you don't want to hear it. Hi guys, I completely agree with Charlie's Top Gun comments. I just need to get my frustration off my chest. The thing I could not get over is why there's a 40-year-old F-14, which is the same plane that Maverick flew in the original films, just hanging out in a hangar towards the end of the movie at the enemy base. It's fully serviced, fully plugged in, fueled up, and fully charged. Why? At a base with fifth-generation fighters, whatever that is. I thought everything else is fine. I can accept it, but I just couldn't accept that. Thanks so much for the show. It's helped me through some hard times, Mark.
Is it the equivalent of somebody just working on an old car in the garage, though? It's like a weekender. They just get out there on the weekends and they, fuck around.
Fly an old jet around.
Yeah.
Well, it's also one of those things, like, from a storytelling point of view, like, I guess was meant to be a big moment, like Max getting back into his V8 Interceptor. It's like, oh, Mav's in an F-14. It's like, I don't fucking know. I don't know the difference between an F-15 and F-14. Like, it's an airplane, right? I mean, I don't even know what year, like, were they a new plane in the 80s or are they an old plane in the 80s?
I've got no idea.
When did jets get invented?
I don't know or care.
Okay, last bit of mails from Alex. The subject is, think about it this way. Hi, Charlie. Try thinking about Top Gun Maverick this way and see if it makes you like the film more. Maverick dies at the start of the film. When he's doing his Mach 10 test and pushes the plane way too far, it explodes and he explodes along with it. The rest of the film is his death dream, the final moments of his life in which he reconciles all his wrongs.
Right.
Rooster is therefore not exactly like his dead dad. Rather, this is Maverick's imagination projecting these traits onto the envisaged Rooster. It also explains why Mav's idealistic girlfriend has just been sitting around waiting for him. I mean, there's no way that Jennifer Connelly is completely unattached, sailing her yacht in her $1 million house and driving a sports car in reality. That is a good point. So, a super hot, like, rich, successful woman is just like hanging around for some fucking stunted suck in the 80s.
So you're suggesting they've spent $300 million on, and then I woke up and it was all a dream? Like, come on. Like, you've literally taken away any stakes from the entire movie.
Other elements of the film start to fall in place when you take this line of thinking too, e.g. the fact that the enemy country is not identified and that Mav gets to make amends with Rooster and himself regarding the death of Goose. Yeah. Look, you know what? It actually makes, if that was the justification for why all these ridiculous coincidences occur, it does make sense, because it's like an egomaniac like Maverick in as his synapses are firing their last few kind of shots. He would reflect on his life where he is still cool and hip, and
but that's
I mean, if they just cut
but that's literally,
the shot of Maverick,
you could say that about any movie. Like, this is like Weekend at Bernie's is the last fever dream of this guy Bernie, who, like, he died and like his last wish was to be dragged around to parties or whatever. Like,
why would that? If your life flashed before your eyes, why would you fantasize about being a corpse having his nuts smashed into like stair rails and stuff? No one is thinking that in their last final moment.
Man. His synapses are firing. You can't control the synapses.
And you can't control your synapses listening to this show. Thank you very much for tuning in. And thank you again to all our Patreon supporters. I just stuck my head in. We've had more people sign up at the top tier, so more posters to send out. It's all fantastic. And remember, if we get to $20,000 a month on our Patreon, Will is definitely going to get a tattoo. Will is going to get a tattoo of my face on his other shoulder. But I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.